So, when we're doing our word problem with our quadratic equation, I notice in my word problem it says round your answer to 2 decimal places. Tells me it's probably not going to factor because I'm going to get a decimal number, and it'd be really hard to factor that way. So I'm going to have to use the quadratic formula and then use my calculator to evaluate my quadratic formula. It says, when a ball is thrown, its height in feet h after t seconds is given by the equation h equals vt minus 16t squared, where v is the initial velocity in feet per second. If v equals 23 feet per second, find all the values of t for which h equals 8 feet. Do not round any intermediate steps. So I'm throwing my ball up. I want to know when it's at 8 feet, and then it's going to go up and around, when it's at 8 feet again, and then it's going to hit the ground. So I'm going to get 2 answers in most cases. V is going to be 23, h is going to be 8, so 8 equals 23 minus 16t squared. Now I have to set that equal to 0. In this case, when you use the quadratic formula, it doesn't really matter if your t squared is negative or not. I just don't like it to be negative. So I'm going to move these over. Whoops, I better put my t behind my 23. There was a vt. So I'm going to use 16t squared minus 23t plus 8 equals 0. And I'm going to move these things over here just because I like my t squared positive. So plugging into my quadratic formula, I'm going to have minus that negative 23 plus or minus the square root of negative 23 squared minus 4 times a is 16 times c is 8 over 2 times a, which is 16. So again, since I have minus a negative 23, that's going to make that positive 23, plus or minus the square root of, and just figure out what the number under the square root is for me. You got calculators, so just plug the whole thing in, unless you want to do it in 2 steps. I know the bottom's 32. $15? 17? You girls getting 17? You get 17, Dan? Nobody knows? You're the only one who did it, Gavin. They're just waiting for you. Gavin says it's 17. I don't know why I didn't do it. All right, so when we calculate that, if we're going to use our calculator, either you need to put parentheses around the top part of that fraction, or you have to hit equals after you put the top in. I just like to use the parentheses. So I would do 23 plus the square root of 17 divided by 32, and then 23 minus the square root of 17 divided by 32. So if you calculate the top there, 23 plus the square root of 17, and then divided by 32, it says round your answer to 2 decimal places. That means 2 places after the decimal, or the hundredths place would be the same thing. Punch that into your calculator, you get
.12. So that rounded would be what? 23.
It seems kind of big. Nothing can't be right. Is that what you got, Dan?
No.
No?
I got, for the positive one, I have 0.85.
That's what I got.
0.85?
Yeah.
Okay.
And for the other one, I got 0.59.
0.59. Did you use the parentheses, Gavin, when you put that in there?
I don't know, I did some.
You did something? If you don't use the parentheses, do it this way. 23 plus the square root of 17, hit equals, and then hit divided by 32. What did I hit? I could say a different answer yet. 23 plus square root of 17 equals divided by 32. There, now I got the right thing. 0.85. All right, so we're going to have two answers. T. T is going to equal 0.85. I can't remember if this one has a thing that you have to click or if you just put a comma. Nope, there's a button. You have to hit the button that says or and then put in the 0.59. They have to change these all the time. So, on number, let's see, that was 13, 14. Number 14, a ball was thrown from a height of 156 feet. So I might be standing on top of the building and I'm going to throw my ball down. Has an initial downward velocity of 8 feet per second. The ball's height in feet after t seconds is given by the following. How long after the ball was thrown does it hit the ground? Well, if it hits the ground, its height's going to be 0, right? Round your answer or answers to the nearest hundredth. Well, if I'm throwing the ball down and it's going to hit the ground, I'm probably only going to get one answer, right? It's not going to, well, it might hit the ground more than once if it's bouncing, but they just want to know the first time it hits the ground. So h, my height is going to be 0. I have 156 minus 8t minus 16t squared then, since I don't have to substitute anything in. This one, since it's already set equal to 0, we might as well just leave it in that order and plug it into our quadratic formula. So, minus our b value, plus or minus the square root of negative 8 squared minus 4 times the a value, which is the negative 16, times the c value, which is 156, all over 2 times the a value, which is negative 16. So, if I have minus a negative 8, obviously going to be positive 8. Plus or minus. I'm going to let you guys use your calculator and figure out what that number under the square root should be. Well, I answered Dennis's question.
I didn't catch how they were doing the exponent.
So on the exponent, if it's a plain squared, you can use that button. If it's cubed, you can use that button. Anything else, you have to use the caret key. So if I'm doing 2 to the 5th power, it's going to give me 32, because if I took 2 times 2 times 2 times 2 times 2, that's 32. So that caret key can do any exponent. You can even do the squares and the cubes if you always want to use that button.
Okay.
All right? What did we get underneath the square root? It's going to be a big number. I don't know what it is.
I got 2,048.
2,048?
10,000.
10,048. 10048. Everybody else get that? They're nodding. They say they got the same thing, so that must be it. Over negative 32. So, either the plus or the minus one's going to work. One of those two. We have to figure it out. So, 8 plus the square root of 1,000, or 10,048 divided by negative 32. That one's probably not going to work because that's going to give you a negative answer. 8 minus the square root of 10,048 divided by negative 32, yeah? Got to be the bottom one because top one's going to give me a negative answer, and we know it can't be a negative answer. Rounding to the nearest hundredth. What are we getting for our answer? 2.88, that's what I got. 2.88. Everybody else get that? All right, good. The other one gave you a negative, and that's not going to work. We can't have a negative time. Number 15 then. A ball is thrown from an initial height of 1 meter with an initial velocity of 20 meters per second square, or 20 meters per second. The ball's height in meters after t seconds is given by the following. H equals 1 plus 20t minus 5t squared. Find all the values of t for which the ball's height is 11 meters. So we want to put 11 in here for the h. 11 equals 1 plus 20t minus 5t squared. We, of course, need to set that equal to 0. So if you set that equal to 0, you're going to have what?
Negative 10 plus 20t minus 5t squared. Do you want to load that all?
We can do it that way. So he subtracted the 11, had negative 10 plus 20t minus 5t squared. And so, putting that in, b, so I'm going to have minus the 20 plus or minus the square root of 20 squared minus 4 times the a value, which is negative 5, and the c value, which is negative 10, over 2 times the a value, which is the negative 5. So negative 20 plus or minus the square root of, and what kind of mess do you get under the square root this time?
Good, 200.
200 over negative 10 then. So again, we still should end up with 2 answers because we're starting at a height of 1, but it's going to hit 11, get to the top, hit 11 again. We should end up with 2 answers. So we're going to have negative 20 plus the square root of 200 divided by negative 10, and then negative 20 minus the square root of 200 divided by negative 10. And what you get for your first answer?
Wait, 5, 8.
You got what?
5, 8.
Did you round it up
1, 6.
to the 100th? Does it say 100th? It does. So 0.5. Yeah, I gotta round that up to 9 because there's a 5 behind there, right? So 0.59. And then if we do our other one, we get 3.41. That's what I got. 3.41 would be our 2 answers then.